My name is Lekha Sleno. I am a professor here at the University of Quebec in Montreal in the chemistry department. I'm also a co-director of a research center that does research on orphan diseases. So a lot of our work is centered on that. And our research lab is mainly focused on developing mass spectrometry driven workflows in metabolomics and proteomics with a lot of biomarker discovery workflows. We develop methods, so we do both metabolomics and proteomics on most of the types of samples and studies that we're running. And in that, we have developed over the years certain workflows that have at this point been standardized by us in the lab, and we're running them continuously. But then each time that something comes up that might be a specific issue analytically or biologically, it might need a fine-tuning of a method or a specific workflow being developed. So the big change for our lab is when we got the Evosep, it was really the first low flow system that we've had. So prior to that, we ran regular analytical flows, so higher flows in the several hundred microliters a minute regime. And so that was a definite big shift. And I wanted to ensure that doing that shift in our lab was going to be reasonably seamless. And I looked into the Evosep for quite a while before making sure that it was the right fit. And we're actually really happy with the way it runs, the robustness, how, the uptime, how reproducible it is overall with the results.
Yeah, right away I didn't have to think about what method we were going to run because the method was already there, and that saves a lot of brain time and thinking time because everything is the same each time. We use the same proteomics methods, and so that is pretty efficient for us. And also the downtime on the system is almost inexistent. There's been very few calls since we've received our system, so that helps a lot with my day-to-day work because I don't have to spend time troubleshooting so many problems.
So before we were doing Evosep, we were doing iFlow. So in the past project I was working in the lab, I was working with a lot of biological samples that had a lot of low concentration of proteins. So before I was doing a lot of fractionation to help increase the coverage instead of a proteome inside. But since we have the Evosep, now we can only inject them by itself without doing any fractionation to have the same coverage of proteins. So it really helps to, when you have a biological sample that is not really a high concentration, to really be able to have a bigger coverage of protein.
Well, it's compatible with the proteomics workflows that we run. So in many of our sample sets, we're trying to answer the questions if there's certain proteins that are increased or decreased in a disease model or a disease state, or upon a certain treatment in a time course, whatever. We deal with a lot of different types of samples coming from either directly in our lab or through collaborations.
When I'm doing basically an experiment in proteomics, I have a lot of sample. I do what I have to do in the sample prep, and then I recon my sample in a small volume. For instance, most of my experiments have only 100 microliter of sample. So the thing is, because we do a lot of untargeted and also targeted analysis, and I'm injecting on high flow system, we inject like 25 microliter, it means that I only have 4 injections to do on each sample. Using the Evosep, it's helped a lot because for the untargeted part, I can only inject a little amount of the sample, and then I have all the rest for doing other analysis of the sample after that untargeted thing.
Yes, there's one big cost savings is in the solvent use, which we were using standard flow before, and we went through a lot of acetonitrile and methanol, and so now our solvent use is way down, and it's nice from an environmental perspective and a cost savings perspective.
I think like Leon said, like you use less solvent, so that's a thing. And in terms of the column, I'm seeing that we use always the same column over and over, and it seems to be pretty robust. So for that, this is This is the only thing I can say.
That's a good question. Actually, from our workflow, it adds a step, but it's a step that's appreciated because it makes sure that the sample that we're loading onto the mass spec is definitely clean and it's ready for mass spec analysis. So it's a step that I'm happy to do, because up until then, loading the Evotip, we have kept our same workflow for now, but we are looking to test if we can go directly to the Evotip loading and injecting right onto the mass spec.
What's really nice that I find is that the fact that we have that extra safety, let's say, of having the sample put on the Evotip, we know that we're not going to put really a lot of interferences or contaminants on the system, and so it saves also on the mass spec side of things.
Yes, I would recommend. I think we have the Evosep since a year now. It's been working really fine, really robust, and we see really great data since we have the system. So of course I will recommend it.
Do you consider yourself a customer or a fan?
Both of them. I'm more a fan, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing to have set methods, because as my supervisor mentioned, we like to really do a lot of method development and sort of tweak things here and there. So it was a big change for us to have the preset methods. But I think that's one of the big strengths of the Evosep system, and that it's so robust and you could expect the same performance every time. And if there is something that goes wrong, it's probably something that I did and not something that the HPLC did. And I think it's a cool concept to have an orange box in your lab, and it makes it more accessible to a lot of users.
Sure, I already do in general. So anyone that asks me about my system, I say that I'm very happy with it and that the communication is really seamless. The way it works, the way the data comes out, the way we can see what's potentially an issue coming up. There's a lot of readbacks on it that we really enjoy having. And the ease of use overall